Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope all of you out there are having a great weekend. We have a great show on tap for today's Philadelphia 76ers. Now, once again, we're going to run through a mailbag, taking your questions, hot takes, and analysis, all that and more coming up on today's show. But I do want to set a record here. The most comments on a video in June up to this point, 81. But for the top commenter who can comment 81 or more times by themselves, we'll give you a shout out on the next show. So comment whatever you want down below. We appreciate that, and we'll make it a friendly competition on this fine Sunday. We begin this mailbag with this one coming in from Is Our Point. What about a Marcus Smart or Zion Williamson trade? If you're to talk about one of those trade targets as being more realistic than the other, is probably Marcus Smart over Zion Williamson as far as the reality there. And we'll get to Marcus Smart here in a second. First, with Zion Williamson. The talent has never been the issue. The availability has been a massive issue. In addition to him staying in shape. For Zion Williamson, he's so gifted, but he's barely played throughout his NBA career. Last 4 years, 2020, 2021, played 61 games. And you're like, my goodness, what we saw at Duke is going to be able to translate, even without a jump shot. 27 points per game, 7 rebounds, 61% from the field, overwhelming physical dominance. In 2021, 2022, didn't play because of a foot. And by the way, to start his career, you were still looking at a guy who was a little bit chunky. And then in 2022, 2023, only plays 29 games coming off that foot injury. So once again, the injuries are a concern, not the production though. 26, 7, 61% from the field. This year, finally in 2023, 2024, one, he stayed healthy, and two, he was in better shape. And what that resulted in was the Pelicans being a much better basketball team, him living up to that massive contract that he signed, and we got to see the potential that he possesses. 23 points per game, nearly 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He got better there in dishing out the rock. And then once again, very, very efficient. But because of the health issues, him staying in shape, the lack of availability, and the questions around that, too big of a risk with the deal that he's playing under when you would have to play him alongside Joel Embiid, and he can't really shoot. So I'm not really sure if you just have him in the dunker spot, what the lineup would be, and I think that Embiid and Zion would clash a little bit as far as the on-court fit. A player who I think would fit and be very intriguing. I know the Boston Celtics got rid of him, and it worked out for Boston because getting Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis made that team dominant and the best team in the NBA from pole to pole, start to finish, and getting rid of Marcus Smart kind of opened up the opportunity for them to improve. Now, Marcus Smart epitomized Boston. He was tough. He was gritty. Former Defensive Player of the Year, a part of that Celtics culture. He goes to the Grizzlies, and I would have liked to have seen him play on that team alongside Ja Morant because I think the Grizzlies needed a two-way player like that. Now, he never shies away from taking the three. That's been an issue, and sometimes you think he's a much better three-point shooter than he actually is. But you look at those numbers last 4 years, 33%, 33, 33.5, and 31. That's not good. But for the Sixers here, even though he's coming off an injury-shortened season in which he played 20 games, he helps your psyche. He helps that dog mentality. He's won a lot of big playoff games, hit a lot of big shots in the playoffs, and he can help you on both ends of the floor. Now, he is pretty expensive. That is a little bit of an issue. But if you were to talk about which player is more realistic for acquiring, it's Marcus Smart over Zion Williamson. Some guy 7'9", Is that Andrew Tate as the profile picture? Good stuff right there. If Jacoby Walter, Tristan Da Silva, Devin Carter, and Jared McCain are all on the board at 16, who do we draft? It's funny, Chip, because we've talked about all of these players, I think, here on the show. I personally like Tristan Da Silva, older player, fulfills a need in the front court, and he's a big who can shoot, and I think that he's seasoned, ready to play right now, that's kind of who I'd go with. How about you?
I would probably go Devin Carter. Now, I don't think he's going to be there. Supposedly, he got a promise from a team in the lottery that someone's going to draft him. So the chances he's there at 16 are very, very low. He's really shut up the draft boards. I like him a lot as also a seasoned player who can come in and be that sort of 3-and-D guard who has, really just been on an uphill trajectory in college. He'd be, I think, a great fit in the backcourt. So Devin Carter will be my number one, I think. Then I'd probably go to Silva 2. I would go Jared McCain 3rd. I also like the skills that he can bring as a younger player, but who can really light it up from the outside and score. And then Jacoby Walter, sort of an upside swing from Baylor. He'd probably be my 4th option out of those 4 guys, just because he's probably going to take a little bit longer to develop and come along than the other 3. And, I think the Sixers should be prioritizing winning right now, which is why I think either Da Silva or Devin Carter, if he's there, would probably be where I'd go at 16.
So we got that good question. We shared our thoughts, our analysis for who we think would be the best fit for Philadelphia and who we would draft if we are running this front office. Now it's your turn. And this is why you subscribe to the show and be a part of the action, because you could be a part of the show just like Chip and I are by voicing your opinions and your thoughts and getting those responses into the comment section. Who would you rather draft? Jacoby Walter, Devin Carter, Tristan Da Silva, Jared McCain? Let us know down in the comment section right now. Mr. Awesome Guy, good to hear from him, longtime viewer of the show and an absolute real one. Can you break down how the money could work for this scenario? You use the first-round picks to get Mikal Bridges, and then one of the seconds to get a backup center like Steven Adams. You re-sign Kelly Oubre, Nick Batum, Kyle Lowry, and then you use the rest of the money to pick up some good rotation guys. Big game hunting sounds like a terrible idea. Don't forget the Maxey extension, too. My man, Mr. Awesome Guy, with an awesome breakdown and question there. Yeah, we can break that down. So the hypothetical roster here for Philadelphia, the 2024-2025 salary cap is $141 million. So you look at the financial figures there next to the player, Joel Embiid, 51 plus, Tyrese Maxey, 35.5, Mikal Bridges, 23.3, Steven Adams only at 12.5. That could be a really good value play, honestly. Kelly Oubre, if you bring him back at 12.1, but I think that he can get more money elsewhere. Paul Reed, 7.7, Nick Batum at 6, Kyle Lowry at 3.3, and then Ricky Council at 1.8. That right there, 9 players on your team. So this leaves Philadelphia $12.7 million over the cap. And as Mr. Awesome Guy said, you don't have to worry about big game hunting. You are still $23 million below the first apron, so you could round out your roster. I just said you have 9 roster spots right there. So a couple of other roster spots to fulfill. That's kind of the financial breakdown right there. And hopefully you thought that breakdown was awesome, Mr. Awesome Guy. Grade this potential 76ers roster that we just showed you there. A, B, C, D, or F. I think we're seeing a shift where you don't necessarily need a big 3 and 3 superstars. You have the 2. It's all about rounding out your roster. The 76ers draft hats on sale right now. Clean look, and you could save a lot of money and look good in the process. All you have to do, thanks to our friends at Fanatics for hooking it up, is use that link down below, chatsports.com/76ers draft hats. We'll put that link down in the show notes, in the description, and attached to the pinned comment of today's 76ers Now. MT Brooker, what do you think about Lonnie Walker or Gary Trent Jr. for the Sixers? I like Gary Trent Jr. I think that he could be a really solid player. For Lonnie Walker, I was high on him coming out of Miami. Part of that is due to the fact that he's a Reading guy, and I always will root on Pennsylvania guys. I think that he's been somewhat disappointing so far in his career. I will say 2 seasons ago, when he was playing in the playoffs for the Lakers, he played really, really well in that second round against the Golden State Warriors. He's just lacked consistency. And because of that, it's held him back from getting consistent minutes and having a defined role, I should say. This past year with Brooklyn, under 10 points per game. He's just not that efficient of a player. 42% from the floor. 38% from 3 is something to build on. because it was up from previous years of 36.5, 31 plus, and 35.5. But I like Gary Trent Jr. a little bit more. I think he's the better offensive player. I like his defensive ability. I think he gives you good size for those areas at 6'5", 209. I've seen Gary Trent Jr. put up much bigger numbers as compared to the 13.7 that he put up last year. He could certainly be up and down as far as the field goal numbers go, 42.5 last year. But the three-point numbers, really not that bad. And this comes with some volume there, where in 2023, 2024, 39% from deep. The year before that, 36.9. Before that, 38.3. And then 38.5. Nick Nurse also overlapped with Gary Trent with the Toronto Raptors. So does have some familiarity with how to implement him onto the team. Jacob Miller, I want to know, everyone who was talking about trading Joel Embiid, what would they consider a realistic trade where the Sixers come out better without him? I feel as though, Chip, a lot of the trade discourse is out of frustration for Embiid being injured, and it's magnified when he gets hurt when it comes time for the playoffs. You have one of the best players in the world on your team. If he can just stay healthy for a playoff run, I'd love to see what Philadelphia is able to do. If the Sixers had a level of continuity on their roster, which they haven't had since they've been a playoff team, they've never really had the same team year over year. I'd like to see what Joel Embiid would be able to do, and I think that's why he voiced that after the year. He said, I'd love to have continuity. Nick Nurse on Colin Cowherd's show this past week. We're looking for continuity here, and I think if he stays healthy, you have continuity, you can see Joel Embiid finally get over the hump of that second round. His value at the same time probably wouldn't be as high as it was last year when he won MVP. Maybe it's a little bit lower now, but you'd still get multiple first-round picks and maybe a really, really good young player. What do you say?
Yeah, and I wanted to bring this up because, it's not many people, but I see the comments and I see the talks online. There are people who have floated out the idea of moving on from Joel Embiid and let's just build around Tyrese Maxey. And frankly, I think that's kind of ridiculous. I understand, as you said, Chase, the frustrations with the injuries and not being able to make a deep postseason run and stay healthy for an entire postseason. And will he ever be able to stay healthy for an entire postseason run? We were having that debate the other day, and, I don't know. But Joel Embiid isn't the type of player you just give up. There's no trade scenario. I don't care what you're getting back, multiple first-round picks, multiple high-end young talents. Whatever you're getting back is not going to be better than Joel Embiid. It just isn't.
Yeah.
You're not going to get back fair value, and we've seen that with other superstars getting traded. It's just not going to happen. I get the frustrations, and while you probably could get good pieces again, you're not going to improve. You don't move on from Joel Embiid. You surround him and Maxey with the talent they need to win because, frankly, they just haven't really had a perfect situation. And, again, that includes getting the right pieces around him, but also staying healthy.
Yeah.
So this offseason, you have your chance now to reformulate this team. So you're Dale Morey, you're the Sixers, you're Nick Nurse. You go out, build the perfect team that you want, get the skill sets around him, hope Embiid stays healthy, see if Maxey can take even another jump from what he did last year. And I think you can compete in the East. Boston's a powerhouse. We've seen that in the finals. But you know what? You don't move on from a player like Joel Embiid.
Yeah,
MVP.
He's one of one. He's one of one. And again, the injury concerns just suck because you feel as though they always come at the most inopportune of times. And this year, a good example of that where you're like, he comes back and you're thinking, the Sixers team is fun. They win, 8 straight to end the regular season. Then he gets hurt again, and the knee continues to be a problem. And he's certainly snake-bitten by all of these injuries. But you have Embiid, you have Maxey. That two-man combo could be deadly, could be elite. You build off of that. And now you have all this cap space. This is when you go for it, although the Boston Celtics, very, very scary. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's 76ers Now by Chat Sports. Year-round coverage. We've been averaging 6-7 videos per week up in the content here because the NBA calendar is starting to get hot.